Oh, what a great song, Till the Check Comes In, taken from the A-side of the HMV single from 1966 by the Thin Men. And talking about Thin Men and with deep voices, let me now introduce the one-time lead bass singer of the Thin Men and one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet, Tony Lee. Welcome to Coast FM. Hang on a second. Hello, Tony Lee. Welcome to Coast FM.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Good, mate. I just pressed the wrong button there, but I've got you now.
Okay.
Nice and loud. Now, Tony, before I ask you about your career with the legendary Thin Men, you were singing in a group called the Planetones. When did you start singing, and when and how did you join the Planetones? Tell us about it.
Oh, just briefly, Gilly, I had a hand in rock and roll when it first started here in Australia, I guess, but certainly in Melbourne for me.
Yeah.
I was in a band called the Fabulous Autocrats. I don't know how fabulous we were, but you had to pick a name from somewhere.
Right.
And I was with them for 2 years, and as fate would have it, things had happened a little bit, and to cut another long story short, I eventually ended up auditioning with a group called the Planetones. They were around before I knew about them, of course. And the only reason I had an audition, one of the members, a lady member of the group, Beverly Dick, she decided to leave the group and go a little bit solo-ish, if you like. And that left the door open for I didn't realise I was a bass singer until I was told. I didn't know much about all that harmony singing. So I auditioned with the Planetones, and we eventually became the Thin Men, then the Moontones, then back to the Thin Men. The Moontones were another group down here in Melbourne back in those early years.
Right.
And I ended up with the Thin Men that way.
Right, so Tony, so the Thin Men, you're saying, were formed as a result of a merger between the Planetones and the Moontones.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. A chap you may know, Brian Penglaze, was a member of the Planetone, the Moontones for a while with us. And along with Adrian Usher, he was the original leader of the group of the Moontones. They were around for quite a while, I believe, on television and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Brian Penglace, because he was with he started singing with you guys. He was Brian there long? He wasn't there long, was he?
Certainly through '61.
Right.
I mean, we sort of not only doing Sunny Side Up, but we were doing other little gigs around town. And Brian was very good. Musically, back in those days when we weren't able to sight read music, if you like, Brian would play our parts on the piano, so we could learn our parts for the shows. Until we learned to read ourselves, Brian was a big help to us, you know. And what a great singer he is too. Oh,
absolutely. And actually, I'll ask you about Johnny Florence in a minute. But before I do that, I'm just going to say you're listening to 88.7 Adelaide's Coast FM, and I'm talking with one-time lead bass singer with from the vocal group, the Thin Men, Tony Lee. Now, Tony, let's stay in Melbourne for a minute here. Now, you guys worked at HSV7 on the most popular variety show at the time called Sunny Side Up, as you mentioned.
That's right.
Now, tell my listeners about your experiences on Sunny Side Up and other similar shows.
Well, of course, everything was live back then. I'm not too sure what happens today, but these were variety shows back in that era, the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. And you asked me a question there, and I think of some comical situations. They weren't comical at the time, but I look back now, they were sort of a bit funny, I guess. Yeah. Sometimes the Thin Men, we used to back other artists on the show as well as doing our own numbers, of course. We do the opening and the finale, and so we had a lot of work vocally to do, and that warranted having a lot of changes in dress, and our dressing room was upstairs, so in between commercials we had to rush upstairs, change into a cowboy outfit or Roman gear, whatever the situation was, and try and get back onto the studio floor before our song started, or before the finale or opening started, whatever the case may have been. Many a times, mate, we were halfway down to the studio floor when the introduction started.
Oh, no.
It was a bit embarrassing. But everything was live. You didn't have time to sort of stop and start, you know?
Yeah, now, look, you moved to Sydney at the end of 1965, right?
November 65. We moved there.
And you were asked to join the Permanent Family on Bobby Lim's TV show, The Sound of Music. Now, what was it like working with that very talented man, Bobby Lim, and Dawn Lake?
very professional. They were all great, the cast there. There was no comedy, it was just all singing, it was just all music, the show. And Bobby Lim had a lot of success prior to Sound of Music, of course. He was on television for years. Very good saxophonist too. He was a good musician himself. And we were lucky enough to get that full time, along with probably back then, I can say with confidence, the biggest club in Sydney, the St George League Club.
Right.
We were a resident group there for nearly 4 years, so we were pretty lucky that way, you know.
So I was going to ask you about that, about the St George League Club. Now, not only did you do your own shows, you also backed some of the top overseas artists, like you mentioned. Now, can you tell us who were some of the top world artists the Thin Men backed, and does the Chevron Silver Spade Room mean anything to you?
Yes, we did the Chevron. I remember doing that. Can't remember who we were with. We might have been there solo. It was a solo act from memory. But at the St George Leagues Club, they had a different show, Gilly, every month.
Right.
And it would have been great to be a member there if you liked watching different shows every month, because you had one every month.
Yeah.
And every show had a singing act, a side act, which could be a juggler and a comedian, and they had a 8-piece ballet there and an orchestra.
Yeah.
So it was pretty great stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And some of the artists we worked with, I remember the first act we worked with when we were there actually for full time, if you like, as the resident group, was a group called the Mills Brothers.
Oh, yes.
They had many hits back in the 30s and 40s. I know it's a long time ago now, but they were hits back then, and they were still very popular then. I'm just trying to reel off the top of my head here. Winfred Atwell, Lonnie Donegan, Freddie and the Dreamers.
Wow.
Johnny Ray was very big in the 50s.
Ooh.
And with Cry and all those things. And he was, Dame Vera Lynn.
Right.
Dickie Valentine, Roger Whittaker, Margaret Whiting, Donald Pears, I'm just rattling off here, David Whitfield, Little Millie, Shirley Bassey.
Shirley Bassey.
Liza Minnelli, would you believe? Catherine Grayson, the actress and singer.
And you met Jerry Lewis somewhere along the line?
The boys did. After I left, I didn't get to meet Jerry, unfortunately, but the other 3 lads did, yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on now.
Okay.
Johnny Florence. Now, how did you meet Johnny Florence, and do you still keep in touch with Johnny and people like Ron Patrick these days?
Yes, I was lucky enough to get in touch with the boys last year. I'm on a computer now. You know what a computer is?
Just, yep.
Well, I didn't. I was still trying to learn, but quite by accident I got in touch with Ron and Johnny Florence via the computer and phone, of course, once we got to know where we were.
Yep.
And Johnny came along. I remember going over to Mount Gambier one time with the Planetones, it would have been back 59, 60.
Right.
And we ventured, after we'd done a show somewhere, I can't remember where exactly, we ended up in this big dance hall from memory, and there's this guy up on the stage, and we all thought what a great singer he was, and it turned out to be Johnny Florence.
Right.
Not realising at that stage that he'd end up joining us and making the group, in my opinion. In 1962 he joined us, thankfully.
Yeah.
And what a great first tenor he was with the group, and a great lead singer himself. You know, he could have had his own career, John.
Oh, absolutely.
He had a great voice.
Oh,
really high, strong, hold those notes for, it felt like 24 bars. I used to always get a chill up my back every show we did. And I knew, one song you did, Gilly, I might be raving on a bit here, but I get excited about Johnny Florence. He used to sing My Prayer.
Oh.
And he'd hold the last note forever, you know?
Yes.
And it's a real high note, and I knew it was coming every night we did it, but I still got that chill up the back of my spine.
Actually, what I'll do, I'll play that one a little bit later on, but before I do anything else, I just want to let you hear something.
Right.
Now, you hang in there. Listen to this. Now, a little birdie told me it's that you're having a birthday tomorrow, Tony.
How do you know that?
Little birdie told me.
Oh.
So happy birthday, mate, for tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, and look, we'll move on here.
Okay.
It's 26 minutes to 1 here in Adelaide. Now, Tony, lastly, I just want to ask you what was it like in those early days, being together, in including the wives or the girls, because I've seen so many photos of you boys on at picnics and beaches, etc., on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me like you were one big family.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Well, that's how I viewed things. I treated the boys, I was only with them for 11 years.
Right.
And the boys went on a lot longer than after I left in 1970, and missed them very much. And also the wives, as you said, to me it was a big family type thing. We weren't only getting around singing songs, we were sort of socialising a lot together too,
Yeah.
And I had to leave all that, unfortunately, and come back to Melbourne. But the boys went on until I left in 1970, and the boys continued as the Thin Men until 1986, and toured the world like most artists do, and did all those wonderful things and had a wonderful career.
Yeah.
I think, anyway.
Now, I didn't ask you who their members were in the original Thin Men. Can you tell us the names? Like, I know Johnny Edwards.
Johnny Edwards, he passed away, unfortunately,
Yes.
September 3rd last year from a heart attack. Ron Patrick, you've mentioned just recently over the phone here, and Johnny Florence, and yours truly was lucky enough to
You were in there.
be accepted initially with the Planetones, which eventually became the Thin Men,
Yeah. No, what a great career. Tony, any last comments before we take off?
Well, can you tell me what to do tomorrow on my birthday? Can I get out of it without getting older or something?
You do whatever you like, mate. You have a fantastic day.
Well, you had one not long ago yourself, mate.
Oh, yeah, back in March.